The purpose of this video is to present a fun and engaging project that you can use to get your class making Photoshop. This is a good starter for all levels and all grades, and even for those who have no experience of using Photoshop whatsoever. You will learn how to create a graffiti style Photoshop collage, something that all students will enjoy. In this tutorial we're going to look at how to get started, engaging immediately with your students, opening work or maybe opening 2 or more images, selecting, copying and pasting sections of images, combining images, using tools like the eraser, like the zoom function and the text tool, and changing layer opacities. So the first thing we're going to look at is how to make a piece of graffiti with a group of students. It's a project I've done for a long time, and here are some examples. To get this started, let's open a couple of images. File, open, and I need 2 images. One of me, which is from quite a poor image really, from the iMac. That's me looking quizzical. The second image I'm going to open is a picture of a wall. I think I've cleverly called it wall. And as you can see in Photoshop, I've got 2 images, and one of the things I will say to the students is, look, click between the images, figure out where you are. If you lose an image, go to window, and down the bottom you can see which images you've got. But on this one, I'm going to take out my face. I'm going to copy my face and shoulders, copy me, get rid of the background. Something that we do in lots and lots of editing, so it's a good tool to use, and I would jump straight in with the students and say, look, we're going to create a Banksy piece of graffiti. This is how we do it. So tell them where we're going and look straight away at how we can cut me out. There's lots and lots on the left hand side in the tools. There's lots of different types of selection tool, masking tools. The one I'm going to show for speed, but also because I think for the project that I'm doing it's a really good tool, is called the quick selection tool. And if I click on any of these tools on the left that have got a little arrow in the corner, it means that I can see if there are options, and the option I want is quick selection. So I'm going to start painting inside the image. It's not perfect, this, and you'll see immediately, if you can see that clearly, it's selected up here, part of the window. I'm not worried though, and I would tell you to the students, don't worry about that. That's something we can come back and sort out. Really, I want to get more than less, because I can always edit afterwards and take stuff away that I can't put. So I've done that quite quickly. I need to copy my selection by saying Edit, Copy, or Command C on a Mac, or Control C. And I'm going to click across to my wall image and paste. It says there's something wrong, it doesn't match. I'll say okay, I have my image, and we're off. The first thing we need to do is grab the eraser tool and start to erase some of this, but of course it's quite tricky to see, so I'm going to zoom in using my magnifying tool, and I can see immediately that I've got a problem here, and I'm going to go back and get my selection tool and start using the keyboard, which is the delete key, to take some of these bits away. Now if I get to here, this is actually going to delete my shirt, which is kind of tricky, which I don't want it to, so I'm going to say select, deselect. I'm going to use my eraser instead. The eraser I have here is very big, so the first thing I'm going to do is reduce the size, and then as I would on a piece of paper, I'm just going to clean up my image by going around the edge and just taking away the bits that I didn't quite get. There's a few over this side as well. Now usually I would say to the students, spend quite a long time on this, but I'm actually going to do it quite quickly because I'm going to put the opacity back up. So I've got a really nice strong eraser, and I'm not too worried if I'm taking a few little edges off. So let's quickly zoom out and see what we've got. Not bad. To move the first layer, I'm going to click on the move tool, which is the top left, and I'm going to drag it over to this side and try and line up the edge at the bottom, which looks quite strange with the line of the bricks. I can also, by grabbing one of the handles while I'm in the move tool, is actually change the shape and size, but of course if I press shift it'll keep the X and Y values the same for me, and it'll mean that I can drag it and keep it looking kind of in proportion. I double click on the image when I'm done, and then I can quickly check if it's about right, and I think it is. I've left some space on the right hand side to add some text, which I'll do in a minute. So the very first thing I'm going to do is say image, adjust levels, and I'm going to make my image slightly darker, slightly lighter, and then I'm going to move the mid-tones just into the middle a little bit. The second part of it is to say image, adjust threshold, and what threshold will do is reduce my image to black and white. My job now is to convince Mr. Computer whether it's too dark or too light, and I'm going to go in the middle somewhere here just to keep enough information. Say OK, and I've got my image just about how I want it. Starting to look like a graffiti piece, looking like a stencil. There are a few touches now that I need to do just to keep it, just to get it just right. The first one is to come over to the layers and choose what's called a layer style. Lots of different styles. The one I'm going to choose is multiply, and that takes away a lot of the white, which is looking pretty good. If I zoom in a little bit, you'll hopefully see this better, and immediately it's starting to look like a piece of graffiti. Before I go away from this panel, I'm also going to look at a very important part of the panel which is called opacity, and that's the opposite of transparency, the amount of see-throughness. So if I click on it, I can run the slider down just a tad, and what's going to happen is that I'll start to see the bricks through the black as well up here, which just again helps with that idea of it being a little bit like a piece of graffiti. I'm going to go back now to my eraser. I'm going to go and get a nice big eraser and start to nibble away at the edges. I can't have any sharp edges because remember this is, well, I just think it looks better. I'm also going to just pinch a few little bits here and there to give it that feeling of not being quite perfect. I think that's looking pretty good. The last thing I'm going to do is add a bit of text. This is for my students, so I'm going to choose a nice big font, about 48, not Helvetica. I'm going to use a font more akin to being on a wall, something like Alphabet Black, which is a graffiti type font, and I'm going to write something along the lines of your dog ate your homework. I'm going to try and spell it right. Question, your dog ate your homework, exclamation mark I'm going to put on there. I'm going to click return, and then using the move tool I can actually move the font where I like. It also has the added advantage, if I go to the handle at the corner, I can drag it to the size I want, which I think sits about there quite nicely. The very last thing I'm going to do is just drop the opacity slightly on this layer, this third layer, which is my text layer. You can see the T. I'm going to drop that just a little bit. So again, it loses its intensity of colour. It also means I can see the brick through it. And I must remember to save my work by saying File. I'm going to say Save As. Call it Dog Homework. And there it is. Say OK. Your dog ate your homework. So what you've seen is a really fun and engaging way of getting started with Photoshop, pretty much at any level for any students. Graffiti is a good way in, and of course you can change and adapt the project in order to fit with whatever it is you're teaching. I think you probably need 20 minutes to start this, and probably an hour or maybe 2 hours for students to get this, at least the beginnings of these skills, sorted. You've learned quite simply how to get a short project happening. It will engage your students. You can open 1, 2, even 3 images. You've selected, copied and pasted images, which is pretty much the basic essentials of Photoshop. And through that you've managed to combine images using the eraser tool, zooming in and out so you can see details, and of course you've added text. In this video we've modelled a short introductory level Photoshop project, something that really anybody can access from whatever subject, whatever grade or whatever level. I found that this project is good for striving students as well as students who are more experienced with Photoshop. We've hopefully created an engaging task that students will both enjoy but learn from.